Today we're going to travel down south. No, not to Mississippi, but to South America, Peru. We're going to explore the fascinating world of ancient civilizations, from the engineering marvels of the Machu Picchu to the mysteries of the Mayan and Inca empires. How did these cultures build such incredible cities, organize vast societies, and leave behind mysteries and still challenge archaeologists today? Joining me is renowned archaeologist, author, and researcher Dr. Edwin Barnhart, director of the Mayan Exploration Center and one of the leading experts of the ancient cultures of the Americas. We'll discuss lost civilizations, ancient technologies, Inca and Mayan history, and what discoveries may still be waiting to be uncovered. I'm Tony Sweet with Truth Be Told. Please welcome to the Truth Be Told studios for the first time, archaeologist Dr. Edwin Barnhart. Oh my gosh, so I'm excited. Even though we're going to be talking about South America and the Central America and Mexico and all this stuff, I think you're living in Colorado, but I have Dr. Ed Barnhart. I got it wrong as soon as I said it. I knew I said it wrong. Barnhart.
That's totally cool.
Here with me, and I'm so excited to have you here. It's fun to talk about some of these ancient civilizations. Some people don't understand what's the importance of it, but I feel it's very important to figure out where we came from, a lot of traditions, things that we still do that we never knew where they come from. So thank you for being here, and thank you for putting all that years of effort into finding new theories and new discoveries.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, like we talked, I'm going to be heading in a week. And I'm not trying to make this a episode about just me or about being a travel guide, but going to some place like Peru and Lima and Cusco and Machu Picchu is very exciting for many people like myself that's been on the bucket list. And many people often go and are amazed by the precious stonework of. We'll just jump right into Machu Picchu, but what do archaeologists believe we're still misunderstanding about the engineering capabilities of this ancient civilization? Because just from the pictures alone and the video I've seen on National Geographic and all over the years, it's outstanding. It's just amazing how they did all this with just primitive tools.
Yeah, it is amazing. And, what archaeologists don't understand, only everything, only the fundamentals of how the heck they did it, especially when it comes to the really gigantic stones that they fit together so perfectly. And oftentimes the biggest ones aren't just simple blocks. That would be one thing. If you could carve the blocks perfectly and put them together, that would be more understandable than this, what we call cycloptic architecture, yeah, which is rough cut stones, and they fit them together with all their weird angles perfectly. That's amazing. We don't know how they did that. We have a theory that says that they used hammer stones and they just lifted the stone up.
Oh yeah,
put it down. Okay, it's not quite right. Lift it back up. Bang it with a couple of rocks. That, to me, that's just impossible. That's not the way they did it. And I don't have a how they did it thing. I have a pet theory that they were using acids to melt them together. And one of these days I'm going to be able to test that. The really amazing stuff that you'll see next week is Cusco. So many people know. Now, Machu Picchu is a marvel. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
But it's one of many palatial compounds that the Inca made for their kings that are called Sapa Incas. But the heart of the empire is Cusco. Cusco means navel in Quechua. And it is the crown jewel of the Inca Empire. And the architecture there is more amazing than everywhere else. And
really?
Few people kind of, when they go there first, they think that Cusco is just their launching point to the special stuff. But Cusco is the special stuff.
I'm excited, in fact, when we're going, because I have a nonprofit called Earthly Beings Foundation, which kind of fits what I do. All about preservation and understanding of ancient cultures. And it's not just about the sites itself, it's traditions, it's fashion, it's food, it's language. So this is what it's exciting for me. And we're going to volunteer at a organization, another nonprofit, of going and working with potatoes and quinoa in the fields and understanding how their culture, this was very important to them. This was their lifeline. And so I'm excited to not just go through the shopping district, but also getting our hands dirty and understanding their culture a little bit better. But one thing that I was watching recently, it's amazing how in the 14th and 1500s is when most of the Incas came really to huge power, if I'm remembering right. Where did they come from? Where did this civilization begin, and how did they get to be so big so quickly?
Well, there's two stories. There's
Ooh, I
the
love
Inca story themselves,
Yeah,
and then there's the story that archaeology tries to put together.
got it.
What would you like first?
Let's do the archaeological, because I have a feeling the Indian or the native, the Incas, will be a little bit more interesting.
It is. Well, the Inca were the last civilization of a parade of magnificent civilizations in, what we call the Andean world, which is Peru as its heart, but it extends into the adjacent modern countries. So they were the last 150 years of civilization there before European contact. If we back up before them and try to see who they evolved from, the next closest one is a culture called the Wari. And the Wari share so much in common with the Inca. I think that, our still shadowy understanding of how they evolved, we look to the Wari. The Wari also lived up in the mountains. A lot of the early civilizations hugged the coast and used aquaculture as one of the ways that they built up their populations and fed such a large amount of people. But the Wari starts up in the Ayacucho Valley, and they run till about 1200, and then they start falling apart. But so many of the things that they did were precursors to the Inca. Like, they made the roads. They made a lot of the roads that we now call part of the Inca system. And they made the first really major farming terraces. The concept that you'd farm outside of your community, build something giant outside of there and maintenance it, that was a Wari idea. And the idea of just an expansionistic empire instead of independent city-states, which a lot of the other cultures like Moche and Chimu, Chimu started a capital too, but the Moche and other cultures along the coast, they were independent city-states. But the Wari were the ones that really said, okay, we're going to take over places. When we get there, we're going to put our architecture in there. We're going to make copies of our capital in places. So there's a lot of reason to believe that the Inca stand on the shoulders of the Wari. But there's this interesting gap where we've got at least a century, probably two, where there's not a major civilization that we can point to, up in the Andes at least. And then the Inca evolve. There's a culture there in Cusco called Quilque, I think is the culture, which we see archaeologically. So people were living in Cusco's valley before the Inca, and they were building things. If you go there, you're going there. So go into the JW Marriott, which is one of the fanciest hotels in town. But in order to build that, the city demanded that they preserve the Quilque archaeological site underneath.
Wow.
So even if you're not staying there, you can go to the front desk and go, I want to see the Quilque ruins. And you can go down into the basement and see the culture before the Inca.
Holy crap, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. That's a good tip. It's easy to do. You can just walk right up, and they that's part of their deal. They have to let the public see it.
That is pretty cool. So Now the Incas, or their version, I don't know if you've intertwined a little bit of that, but what is their version? Because like you said, if you go to ask a Native American versus an archaeological historian, it is going to be different. Is their version much different than what you just said?
Yeah. Very different, very different. We have bits and pieces of it in various chronicles and things that the Quechua people wrote themselves. We know that they had a concept of previous worlds, kind of like the Maya did, where there were giants and there were technologies that came up. But the Inca really start with their creator deity, Viracocha, first calling up the sun and the moon from Lake Titicaca, which is very far away from their capital in Cusco. It's way to the south. It's split by the borders of Bolivia and Peru.
Wow.
So he, on the island of the sun, calls up the moon and the sun and begins time. Then he makes, then this is, some people say he shaped them out of clay and painted them, all the peoples of the world. But one way or another, he creates them. But he makes the Inca special. And there are 4 sisters and 4 brothers that are the original Inca. And they start at Lake Titicaca and they go into a cave system that they travel north and they pop up at a place called Pacaritambo. And the place where they emerge from this cave has 3 windows, 3 cave openings. So it's called Tocotambo. And these 3 windows, you'll actually see a building at Machu Picchu that has 3 windows, and we think that they're imitating that origin spot where they emerge. And they've been given this kind of mandate from, or a destiny from Viracocha, that they are going to be the next great civilization, and they're going to find their capital. So when they emerge, they're on their way to find where the capital is. And they enlist the local people at Pacaritambo to be kind of their army as they're going forward. There's all sorts of funny stories about the dysfunctional relationship these siblings have. One big rude one is being rude to the people, the Tombos who live there. And so they trick him into going back to the cave to get something they forgot, and then they put a big rock over it and just blow him off. He doesn't even get to be part of it. But as they go forward, the brothers mainly are reviewing, looking around from hilltops, and finally they find Cusco, and the brother who's going to be the first Inca, Manco Inca, throws this golden staff into the valley, and it sticks all the way down in. So he says, that's fertile ground. That's where we're going to be able to farm and plan. And so they establish Cusco. One of the sisters, named Mama Waco, is an expert with a sling. And the people that live in the valley at first, push back, like, no, this is our valley. But she comes down and she uses her sling and hits one of them so hard that their body explodes. And the rest of them are like, well, we don't want that. Okay, cool. You've got the valley. And that's what they say their origin is.
Yeah, I like their version better.
There's a lot more color in there too. I tried to give you the shortened version, but those are the big points.
As the archaeologist, if you go to almost every civilization around the world in these histories of what the Egyptians and Native Americans, they always have these amazing stories. As somebody that does the research, and I know you're all about fact, when so many civilizations around the world have very similar stories of gods and giants and all these, from the sky, and I don't want to get too into the paranormal, but I'm sure. How do you not take that into account, where a lot of them said, no, facts is facts, and that's all I want to, if I find it under the ground, that's the truth. How do you separate the two?
Well, I think that archaeologists are somewhat split on this issue. I fall in the let's listen to this.
Yeah.
Let's actually. Most stories are the best stories always have a kernel of truth that's been colored up.
Yes. Yes.
So, I approach this story of the Inca in the same way. And point of fact, I'm not alone. We have looked for some of the evidence of these places, and we have located a place with three caves
I,
that
I was
looks
going to
like
ask you about that.
Tocotambo.
Yeah.
And in that little valley, we found a later Inca palace
Oh.
uh, in that place called Pacari Tambo. And there's a number of Inca that do pilgrimages to that same valley to honor their origins. So, I mean, it's not all a story. At least it was a story that they full believed was their origin story. And, if we put the mirror back on ourselves with Christianity, there's a whole lot of nonsense that we're just taking as fact in the Bible. I mean,
True.
not to defend anybody about the Bible, but it's
I
it's just
agree with
true.
you.
Nobody got ate by a whale. That's just color.
Yeah. No,
There's a whole lot of biblical archaeology that's finding sites from the Bible, and that's neat. So in my opinion, we've got to listen to it with an open mind and try to separate fact from fiction.
I mean, growing up in Kansas and a small country town, we used to hunt and fish and all that stuff. And in one generation, I could hear stories that my dad or grandpa would tell, and every year the stories got a little bit more colorful. The fish was a little bit bigger. The
Yeah, I
deer.
mean, that's perfect analogy. That's a human thing.
And so take 2 or 3 or 1,000 years, there's a lot of things that can be enhanced by then. Yeah, always take that in consideration, but it is
And a
fun.
story that's lasted 3,000 years, well, heck, that had to be elaborated just to make it through.
I know, right? Or people forgot very quickly about it. One thing that I found interesting about the Incas and the Mayans, Incas never had any they left really no written language in the traditional sense. But yet the Mayans actually developed one of the most sophisticated writing systems in the ancient Americas. How does the difference affect what we know and don't know about these cultures?
Well, you're right on the money with the Maya. They created one of five, maybe only four original scripts on the planet, and the only one in the Americas. So they really are a standout among
Yeah.
all the great civilizations of the ancient Americas. But what once we were able to translate it, the magical thing is that they get to speak to us in their own words. Archaeologists, we build stories around these things, but if we're honest with ourselves, half of them are pretty flaky theories and probably wrong. But here we have an opportunity for the Maya to tell us what the names of their kings were, who they fought, who they married, who they loved, and in some contexts, interesting glimpses into their mythology and their cosmology and all these beautiful things that we don't have to guess about. They're telling us. Now, some negative Nellies will say, "Oh, that's all just propaganda. That's nonsense." But even if it is propaganda, it's still insight into their minds. Where we have the Inca, who are supposedly without written language, I think that is totally untrue. I think we just haven't broken it. Their written language is the khipu, and that's a knotted string record. And there were teams of, what we'd call scribes that knotted these strings. There'd be a long string, thicker on the top, and then strings would dangle. And each one of those strings had knots on them, and they would read them like a book. They'd hold them out. The people that made those and read them were called khipu kamayaks, and there were thousands and thousands of them. And they could hold them out and read them like books. So letters could be sent across the
Wow.
empire. There was a heck of a lot of accounting. I mean, again, the Maya were super, but the Inca controlled an empire of 10 million people. It defies logic that they couldn't do that, that they could do that without some sort of written organizational system. I mean, you just need at that scale, to pass messages back and forth and record your history. There were Spanish explorers, Spanish conquistadors who came to Cusco in the first 10, 20 years of the conquest. And there were still libraries there. And one guy named El Cusqueño is his nickname because he stayed there so long. He'd walk into these libraries and talk to the curators and walk through these rows of quipus hanging. And he'd say, read that one for me. Read that one for me. And the guy didn't nod it, but he said that he'd read histories that were back 500 years.
Wow.
And so there really is a record. We have about 1,000 quipus left to study on the planet. 2/3 of them follow the rules of math, so they're basically accounting sheets. But 1/3 doesn't. And we haven't broken the code yet. But when we do, and I hope we do someday, then the Inca can speak their truth to us instead of our conjecture and doing the best we can.
And I know it may sound like a silly question, but how do you break that? If you already know somewhat their language, how do you break that code? I mean,
we got to find a kind of Rosetta Stone. There are people that are working on it. We've made great progress for 3 or 4 centuries. Nobody even thought about it. And then in 1923, a researcher, a mathematician named Leland Locke, broke the code of the math. And so we figured out all of these accounting quipus. And we can see them, there's groups of strings with various numbers and then a loop around them with a string that's the total. And then there's information at the beginning of the document that we can't translate that must be the title and what they're counting. We've made progress in interesting ways, but what we really need is a Rosetta Stone, and I think that's still possible.
I find
there's a priest named Diego de Porres, who was an early priest with the charge of converting the Indians. He was in some little village that I still don't know where it is, but there were 3,000 people there, and he had the Quipu Kamayaks knot quipus for everyone in the community that were the 39 prayers that they were supposed to memorize. And if he found one without their quipu on them, he'd flog them. So somewhere there's 3,000 copies of quipus that are actually Spanish prayers. Those could be our Rosetta Stone. And that's not the only story like that. It is possible. From the beginning of trying to figure out Maya hieroglyphs to actually breaking the code in the 1970s was 100 years of us just kind of floundering around until we finally did it. If Leland Locke set the clock at 1923, well, shit, we're at 100 years right now. Right. Maybe this is the generation that cracks the Inca code.
This reminds me of the old school, the treasure map, and you want people probably ask like, why do they even how do they get motivated to do this? You're explaining exactly. There's so much still to discover that it probably keeps you on your toes and trying to find these, hidden, transcripts or knots that are probably still out there. It's just because I had someone on the show about a year ago talking about Egypt, and he said this is amount of discovery that we've discovered already. There's probably 95% that we haven't even discovered yet. That's exciting when you think about our history of this planet. There's a lot of thousands of years that we don't even know about yet. So
job security for guys like me.
Right. I know there's a lot of people that are interested in both the Mayans and the Incas. As Rome and Egypt kind of intertwined in a way, with their trading and even traditions and culture, did the Mayans and the Incas ever kind of exchange ideas, technologies, knowledge?
Not that we can prove. And actually, the height of the classic Maya period correlates better to a culture before the Inca, the Moche.
Moche, yeah.
But at the moment, even though we find artifacts and we find, pieces of evidence of contact between the Andean world and Mesoamerica, we still have not found enough to say that there was sustained contact or great influence. So for the Maya, they were being, the major influence on them was the Aztec. Which were also, a blip in the pan here.
Right.
It's just 150 years, and then Cortez shows up. Same thing with the Inca, so those two are contemporaries, but we have no evidence that they met, which I think is one of those 95% of things we don't know and haven't found yet. I think it's, at this point, it's almost an absurdity to assume these cultures did not have the capacity to meet. Now, perhaps they didn't meet for different reasons. But so the Maya and the Inca never met each other. The Aztec and the Inca, or the Aztec and the Maya, if the Aztec were given another 20 years, they would have completely dominated the Maya.
Wow.
And the Inca were busy dominating all of the other cultures in the Andean world, like the Chimu people. But they were doing a different tact than the Aztecs. The Aztecs were ruling with an iron fist, do it or we'll rip your heart out.
Right.
The Inca were providing services. Every village that came into the empire started getting roads, started getting storehouses of food, had monthly festivals to eat food surplus. It was kind of a nice place. And I think that the Inca would have gone on for a long time, and if left alone, perhaps they would have met and even liberated the Maya. But they weren't given that chance. The Spanish and 12 deadly infectious diseases showed up and wiped out 90% of the people in the first 50 years of contact.
That's always sad when you hear about these civilizations. Most of them would have thrived if outside, I hate to say where even America with the Native Americans, they were thriving. They weren't just savage people. In fact, where I was from in Kansas, they found recently about, I'd say 40 minutes from me, close to the Oklahoma border, this site that they said probably it was a city of 20,000 people. They had a democracy. They had aqueducts, all these different things. And growing up, all you heard was, teepees and nomads and all this stuff. So
I think you're talking about the one that's called like Etzanoa or something that the Spanish contacted. That one, that's a funny site. I hope it's that one, but it's kind of a nothing site. Nearby, there are sites with pyramids on them. The Mississippian civilization was way over 1 million people and dozens of cities with big earthen-built pyramids and palisade walls. It wasn't just a little civilization. No. The chronicles of DeSoto, as he went from Florida up through the East Coast and then over to the Mississippi, he sees city after city after city that are huge and substantial, and highways between them. There's an entire civilization that the people who inhabit North America right now just have forced amnesia. We have swept those people under the rug for so many generations that we did it. Nobody knows they exist, but they're right in everybody's backyard. St. Louis is right next to Cahokia, which has a gigantic pyramid that covers an area of like 6 football fields called Cahokia, and there were 30,000 people living there. Huge palisade wall, huge suburban sprawl around them, and nobody knows it exists. It's frustrating. I'm trying to get the word out. Thanks for helping me.
No, of course. I'm with you there. Because their organization was way more advanced than what we ever thought about. What is your thoughts on that when it comes to the leadership, the way they ran these empires was way advanced than what we think. Because when you think of mine, you think of a leader, but you don't really think of, as us whiteys, as white folks, that we just think they're just, primitive.
And that's the story we've been told again and again. Yeah. And I think, the image of the American Indian, especially in the middle of the United States, is this, guy on a horse with a feather headdress and a spear or a bow and arrow, and they're, desperately fighting off the pioneers.
Yes. Yes.
That's a window that is true, but that's the post-apocalyptic world for America. Mm-hmm. That, if we back it up, even, just 100 years before that, there were major cities with like suburban neighborhoods, houses that were rectangular and had roofs and little families living in them, and plazas and sporting events. We love our football and baseball. Oh, yeah. They had one. They had one called Chunky, and Cahokia has a big chunky court. They were much more like us than we've been led to believe. That was never even publicized. The image of the American Indian that everyone has is the one who's fighting for his life in a post-apocalyptic world where 90% of everybody that was part of his civilization died in a generation. The young and the old first. So the transmission of knowledge just got shot out the window. Mm-hmm. Their ideas and their religions said that sickness is a spiritual thing. So they felt their gods abandoned them and readily accepted Christianity. It was a different world, but there was one before that. The ancient America. That's what I really have spent my life trying to put together. I'd love to make a history book for high schools that is, America before.
Oh, that's good. I would think you should do that. I think it's very important. And I'm going to use the analogy for the people that still are on the fence. Imagine an outside source dropped a nuclear bomb on our civilization. And 100 years after, that's what the American Indians that we were taught kind of...
Yeah. They're Mad Max.
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah. But it's fascinating that these empires, how did, especially in South America and the Mayans, Incas, Aztec, as we know with Egypt and the royals in UK, a lot of it was passed down through generations. Were they also a generational thing, or was it kind of fight to whoever challenged the leadership, or both?
Well, much like the European analogy you're drawing up here, it was heredity, but there were also family challenges. You had to start with the proper pedigree. Mm-hmm. But there were many examples where some big, strong leader who wasn't really the next in line took over anyway out of strength. So there was a combination of that. But the base of it was heredity. So you had hereditary lines of kings and queens in all of those cultures, in the Aztec and the Maya and the Inca. And they kept, bloodline documents. Hmm. We have for all of them, especially with the Maya, since we can read their glyphs. We have whole dynasties of kings, and we know, they say in the glyphs, I am the son of this man and this woman, and my grandfather's name is this, and I come from this great line that started centuries before me. And certain places they'll list out their kings. Palenque has a great tablet that lists every king before the 16th one, the 13th one that's making the tablet. And then there's a left side of the tablet that goes way back in history. Talks about a king of Palenque in 900 BC.
Wow.
and then talks about the origin of the fourth creation we live in, and talks about a mother who gives birth to three kids that are the like founding mythological kings of Palenque back in like 2300 BCE. So there's a lot of lineage talk, and that's basically how they function through lineage, but there could be challenges.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure. Like, because even the UK, I mean, over the years, if you think about with Scotland and England and Ireland and all these people that used to battle and fight and
Well, we just went through one over there that I was hoping would get spicier than it did. The Stone of Destiny, you know what I'm talking about?
no,
The English stole this stone that all of the Scottish kings were crowned on. They'd sit on the stone and get crowned, and the English stole it centuries ago, and it was in Westminster Abbey. And then some Scottish college students drove down there in the middle of the night and stole it and brought it back to Scotland in like the 1970s. And it was a big hubbub. The British took it back, but then they said, okay, you guys, hey, there it is. You guys can keep the stone in Scotland, but whenever there's a new king to be crowned, it has to come back and he gets to sit on it. So Charles just sat on the stone. And I was really hoping it would get spicier and they'd like refuse to give it back or there'd be some sort of hubbub, but it was all very English and orderly. They took the stone from Scotland. He sat on it. They gave it back. But what a cool little twist of history like that.
that is
That's
pretty
right
cool.
in our whitey backyard.
I love it. Well, I know our time's getting limited, but is for the sites that you really dedicate your life to, is there one that still stands out to you that it's the most mysterious, or one that you just keep getting called back to that you really focus on right now, or since you started?
It's changed over my lifetime. I mean, I have my, enduring loves. Palenque is an amazing place, and it's near and dear to my heart. I, as a man in my 20s, found over 1,000 new buildings there. That was
Wow.
very exciting, and I still think there's more to find there. So I'll never let go of trying to bring Palenque out of the shadows. I'd say, right now, the things that fascinate me the most are Southeast Asia, the Khmer civilization
Wow.
that built Angkor Wat and many cities around it that people know nothing about. For years there were landmines all over that place.
Yeah.
There still are. So you can't investigate a lot of the cities. That civilization dwarfs anything that happened in the Americas.
Wow.
And in the city of Angkor, for example, there's people think Angkor Wat is the whole city. No, that's just one little section of a city that
my
had
God.
almost 1 million people at 1300. And there's a section called Angkor Thom, which has a 3 by 3 kilometer wall around it and a moat going around it and huge temples inside. The entire city of Tikal, which is one of the largest the Maya ever built, would fit just inside Angkor Thom.
Wow.
It dwarfs what we see over here in Americas, and I'm fascinated by it.
What do you think on your bucket list that could change history or religion if the discovery was ever made? What would be the one that you think would do all that? And where would that location be, you think?
Well, if we stick to the Americas, I am enamored with Peru, and I have been working my whole career for 35, 40 years on and off about radically rethinking Andean religion from their origins right up to Inca. I think they're monotheistic, and they're following a deity that I call the fanged deity. I think he is Viracocha, and I think that our pantheon of gods for the Andean civilizations is misunderstood make-believe. That there's actually one creator deity, and I'm forever procrastinating on writing this book. I just talk about it on podcasts, but I will get to it. And I think I will radically change how we see the religions of the Andean world. That there's one creator deity, the Fang deity. He's named Iacapec or Iapec or
Wow.
Pachacamac or Viracocha. He's everywhere. And I have a very strong argument that I've laid out in many a lecture, but I need to write the book.
Do it. Put it out there. I think everybody would probably be buying that just because we've been waiting for it because you've been mentioning it.
And the really crazy thing is he didn't come from those civilizations. I am certain that this religion originated in the Amazon and came up because he's a jaguar. There's no jaguars on the coast and in the Andes. He has an Amazonian origin in these civilizations that were just now, this generation, finally proving there are ancient civilizations in there. And since I've been saying this for decades, I'm super excited that finally the civilizations that I'm saying it must have come from in there. Where are those people? They're showing up. And so's the Fang deity.
I have to say, my spouse and I, my spouse is from Manaus, Brazil. And,
oh, cool.
And so about an hour north, his family has some land, and they actually sold us some land. It's about 1,000 acres of Amazon forest.
Like up the Black River?
I can't remember it's a big man-made lake over there. But it's beautiful. And his uncle has a bunch of land, and the waterfalls on it. Oh, it just, walking through there is just so magical. We're trying to figure out what we want to do with that. We want to definitely, we're not going to I don't want to tear any trees down. I wanted to make it somewhere like a...
The Amazon fights back. Good luck with that.
Yeah. But
don't do that. It'll get the better of you.
Yeah. I want to, preserve all that. But, it's funny that you mentioned that. But there is something about South America that is very, I don't know, spiritual. It's I think, here in America, there is some spirit, but we've done so much to it, to where the spirituality it's been bruised up a little bit. But the Amazon and the South America, there's still so much untouched that there's just something special about it. So
yeah, sadly in North America, our remaining indigenous population is isolated on reservations. You don't see them walking down the street. No. But in Manaus and in Peru, they're everywhere. The population is still predominantly indigenous people who are following very ancient traditions. So the spirituality is there at every turn. You're going to love Cusco. Machu Picchu's a great adventure park, but the heart of what you're looking for the people and their traditions, it's everywhere on the streets in Cusco. It's just, I'm not a religious person, but that place is straight up spiritual. You can feel it.
Well, while we're there, there's two things. It's the Andean New Year and winter solstice, which is amazing. And then
Inti-Rhyme.
Yeah, and then I don't know how to pronounce it, but on the 20th, it's the Algorical Parade. I don't know what.
Well, I don't know that term either, but I do know that it's happening at their winter solstice, June 21st. So the day before is this outrageous parade. The people in the region are so enthusiastic to take part of this in the old capital that they send, a village of 3,000 people will send 2,000 people. And the street is just a sea of people representing their communities. And then they get to proudly go around the Plaza de Armas with their signs and things. And the workers of Cusco come in too. There's like the electrician society. They go in worker groups, and then they all go up the mountain to the site of Sacsayhuaman, where the Inca sacrifices a black llama.
Wow.
And there are actual mummies in the street. When you're there.
Really?
Yeah. I last time I did that, I walked out of my hotel at like 6 a.m. and they were preparing for the big thing in the plaza, and four guys with a mummy on a stretcher
Wow.
just walked right by me. I was like, "Oh my God, that was not plastic. That was an actual skeleton."
I'm very, very excited. And it wasn't like we didn't plan that. It just happened. So apparently it was meant to be. So we're going to be documenting
Watch yourself. When the crowds get crazy, pickpockets are out there.
I'm sure. Yeah.
I had to hold my group up in our hotel and just watch out the window as tens of thousands of people flooded the street until dawn.
Yeah. I even in Manaus, my spouse is always like, put your phone away. Don't do this. Don't do that. I'm always pretty aware. But yeah, I'm sure there it's going to be even worse.
That night before will be a maelstrom. It's crazy. Watch it from a window.
Yeah, right. Well, I appreciate you. We're going to have you back because it sounds like there's other parts of the world that you're very interested in and are experienced in. So we'd love to have you back. And thank you for sharing all this wisdom and knowledge. And I would love to just to watch you work one of these days in the field. I think that's always been a dream of mine, to going and just digging and watching and participating in something like that. But maybe.
It was a pleasure to talk to you, and sure, let's do it some more. And I would be happy to have you on a project, seeing what I'm up to. Mostly now I'm a talking head. I've got
Right.
my own podcast, Archaeo-Ed, and my YouTube channel, which nobody knows about, but it's archaeologist Ed Barnhart. And so yeah, more of these stories are there, but I'd be happy to come and talk about them live with you another time.
Perfect. And people can go to your website, archaeoed.com, right?
That's my main podcast website. My day job is I'm the director of Maya Exploration Center, and that's mayaexploration.org.
And people can donate.
And then I've got
to
my
that.
YouTube channel, just archaeologist Ed Barnhart.
And
In
people
these
can-
days, you don't need to name all those things. Just Google me.
Right.
It'll all come up.
But people can donate to your organization too. Is that correct?
Oh, I wish they would. Yeah, I've got my nonprofit is my day job, Maya Exploration Center. Donations are very welcome. And then I also have a Patreon connected to my other, talking head activities, which, I love doing this. And if I can pay the bills on it, that would be super.
Right. We love that. Well, hopefully we can all help you out and participate in what you're doing and contributing in what you're doing too. But Dr. Ed, thank you so much. And thank you everybody for tuning in. We really enjoyed, and we hope that if you have any more questions, just reach out. He has a podcast. He has an organization. You reach out, and I'm sure he would love to hear from you. But until next time, I'm Tony Sweet with Truth Be Told on the Club Paranormal Network. Thank you, and please subscribe, follow, and share. And we appreciate your support. But take care of yourself and each other, and I'll see you next Friday.